For decades, priceless classics from Hollywood's golden age were believed to be lost, victims of studio carelessness, film decay, and nitrate fires. Yet against the odds, many of these films have been rediscovered and restored. Credit goes to film historians and archives that refuse to let these treasures vanish. Here are some of the most remarkable comebacks in cinema history. First, Metropolis, 1927. Fritz Lang's Metropolis stands as one of the most influential science fiction films in cinematic history. Produced in Germany during the Weimar Republic era, it was famed for its sprawling, futuristic cityscape, expressionistic set design, and a narrative exploring class division and industrialization. Starring Brigitte Helm, Gustav Fröhlich, and Alfred Abel, the movie centered on the tensions between the wealthy elite living in glittering skyscrapers and the working class toiling underground to keep the city running. The film's visual grandeur and pioneering special effects, most notably the transformation scene of the Maschinenmensch, robot, cemented its reputation as a masterpiece of early cinema. Metropolis was originally a very long film, around 2.5 hours, but soon after its premiere, it was heavily edited for international distribution. Distributors and studios removed key plot sequences to shorten running time and appeal to wider audiences. As a result, much of the original footage was presumed lost for decades. Scholars and film enthusiasts only had truncated versions available, missing crucial scenes that explained character motivations and major plot points. Then, in 2008, a nearly complete 16mm negative of the original cut was discovered in the archives of the Museo del Cine in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This extraordinary find allowed film preservationists to restore the film closer to Lang's original vision. The newly discovered segments were of lower image quality, but they filled many narrative gaps. Today, Metropolis is celebrated not only as a cornerstone of science fiction, but also as a remarkable example of how lost cinematic treasures can still resurface against all odds. Drugi Sherlock Holmes, 1916. The 1916 silent film Sherlock Holmes holds a special place in the history of Arthur Conan Doyle adaptations, primarily because it stars William Gillette, the American actor who defined Holmes's stage persona. Gillette was already world-renowned for portraying the iconic detective on stage, famously adding elements like the curved pipe and deerstalker cap that became emblematic of Holmes. Directed by Arthur Berthollet, this film transported Gillette's legendary stage performance to the screen, blending elements from several Holmes stories to create an original narrative featuring Dr. Watson and arch-villain Professor Moriarty. For decades, Sherlock Holmes was assumed to be lost. Films from that era often succumbed to nitrate decay or were discarded by studios that did not foresee their future value. Given that Gillette's stage portrayal was so influential, the loss of the only cinematic record of his performance was especially lamented by Holmes aficionados. Enthusiasts pieced together its existence through press clippings and production stills, but no known print was available. That changed in 2014, when a complete negative of Sherlock Holmes was unearthed in the vaults of the Cinémathèque Française. The exciting find allowed film preservationists to restore the movie and provide modern audiences with a chance to see Gillette in action. Despite the lack of sound, viewers can observe his subtle mannerisms and understated wit, hallmarks of his stage presence. The film's rediscovery offers a rare bridge between the 19th century stage and early 20th century cinema, an artifact that enriches our appreciation of both Sherlock Holmes and silent film history. 3. Wings, 1927. Directed by William A. Wellman, Wings is celebrated as the first film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture, called Outstanding Picture, at the inaugural ceremony. Starring Clara Bow, Charles Buddy Rogers, and Richard Arlen, with a memorable cameo by a young Gary Cooper, this World War I aviation epic captured the hearts of audiences through its thrilling airborne combat sequences and heartfelt romantic drama. It follows two rival pilots and the woman they both love, weaving together themes of friendship, sacrifice, and the brutal reality of war. The film showcased groundbreaking aerial cinematography, pushing the boundaries of what was technically possible at the time. Real planes, actual dogfights, and elaborate stunt work contributed to a sense of awe rarely seen in earlier silent films. However, like many silent films, Wings was largely circulated in shortened or re-edited versions once sound films gained prominence. Some color tinting and other visual flourishes from the original were thought to be lost as the studio system moved on. Fortunately, Paramount preserved Wings better than many of its contemporaries, but parts of the original nitrate prints deteriorated over time. Fans could view it in incomplete or low-quality versions for decades, but not until the early 2000s did a major restoration project, undertaken by Paramount and Film Archives, bring back its vibrant tints and crisp detail. The result allowed modern audiences to experience the film much as 1927 viewers did, complete with a newly recorded orchestral score. The restored Wings not only reaffirms its place in cinematic history, but also underscores the grandeur and innovation of silent-era film production. 4. Their First Misunderstanding, 1911. Their First Misunderstanding is a historically significant short film for one primary reason. It featured Mary Pickford, and marked the first time she was credited by name on screen. At merely 18 years old, Pickford was emerging as one of the most prominent actresses in early Hollywood. Directed by Thomas H. Ince and co-starring Owen Moore, Pickford's then-husband, this domestic comedy runs only about 10 minutes. It revolves around a young married couple's trivial quarrel, which escalates into a comedic misunderstanding. A simple but relatable scenario for audiences of the era. For decades, this short film was considered lost, with Mary Pickford's earliest known surviving work believed to date from later in 1911. Nitrate decay, negligence, and the ephemeral nature of early short subjects all contributed to its apparent disappearance. Early silent shorts were rarely preserved. They were transient products meant to fill theater programs. Studios saw little reason to spend resources on long-term archival. In 2006, an unexpected discovery in a New Hampshire barn changed the film's fate. A collector stumbled upon a canister labeled as a 16mm print of Their First Misunderstanding, and upon closer inspection, it proved to be the real deal. Preservationists quickly moved to restore it, stabilizing the fragile print and transferring it to safer film stock. This rediscovery is particularly valuable because it documents Mary Pickford's evolution into one of the silent era's biggest stars. Although only a short piece of entertainment, Their First Misunderstanding highlights how easily film history can slip through the cracks, and how thrilling it is when such lost treasures resurface. 5. Different from the Others, 1919. A groundbreaking and courageous film for its time, Different from the Others tackled the taboo subject of homosexuality head-on. Directed by Richard Oswald and co-written by famed sexologist Magnus Hirschfeld, it starred Conrad Veidt, best known for later roles in The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Casablanca, as a concert violinist who falls in love with one of his male students. The film depicts societal prejudice, blackmail, and the emotional turmoil experienced by its protagonists. In an era when censorship laws were already tightening in various parts of the world, Different from the Others faced immediate backlash. Many prints were confiscated or destroyed by authorities who deemed its content immoral or subversive. As a result, the film quickly became inaccessible, and for decades it was considered either lost or fragmented. Its partial rediscovery came about through scattered footage preserved in Hirschfeld's Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin, and later archived pieces uncovered in various European collections. Although some segments are still missing, film historians and LGBTQ+ scholars have painstakingly pieced together what remains. This has allowed modern audiences to get a sense of just how progressive and rare the film's message was. The cinematic value of Different from the Others lies not only in its historical context as one of the first gay-themed films, but also in its empathetic treatment of an often marginalized subject. Despite incomplete footage, the restoration efforts highlight the film's boldness, offering a poignant reminder of how far ahead of its time it truly was, and why it faced such fierce suppression. 6. Tarzan and the Golden Lion, 1927. Tarzan and the Golden Lion hold a distinctive spot in the lineage of Edgar Rice Burroughs' adaptations. This silent-era adventure, produced by Film Booking Offices of America, starred James Pearce in the title role, an interesting twist, as Pearce later became the voice of Tarzan on radio. The film also featured Boris Karloff in a minor villainous part long before his fame in Frankenstein. During the 1920s, Tarzan films were already popular, capitalizing on audiences' fascination with jungle escapades and exotic locales. Tarzan and the Golden Lion centers on Tarzan's quest to protect his jungle home from treasure hunters seeking a hidden city's gold. Burroughs' storyline involves high adventure, a regal lion companion, and themes of loyalty and heroism. However, like many silent films, this movie's distribution was spotty. Prints circulated erratically, and studios did not prioritize its preservation once sound technology took over. Over the years, Tarzan and the Golden Lion fell into obscurity. Many presumed it lost until the 1990s, when a print was discovered in France. Preservationists worked diligently to restore it, providing a rare look at a pre-sound Tarzan adaptation. The cinematic value lies in its depiction of an iconic literary figure during Hollywood's formative years. Although the film's budget was modest, the action sequences, jungle sets, and James Pearce's physical portrayal remain entertaining from a historical perspective. Today, the film occupies a special niche among collectors and fans of early adventure cinema, reminding us of how these well-known franchises evolved across silent and sound eras alike. 7. The Life and Death of King Richard III, 1912. Regarded as the earliest known American feature-length film based on a Shakespearean play, The Life and Death of King Richard III was a remarkable achievement in early cinema. Produced by the Film Guild and directed by James Keane, it featured stage actor Frederick Ward in the title role, delivering a theatrical yet pioneering screen performance. At a time when most films ran only a few minutes, this adaptation stretched to approximately 55 minutes, showcasing a more ambitious narrative scope. For decades, The Life and Death of King Richard III was presumed lost, with only a few production stills and written accounts providing clues to its existence. Early Shakespeare adaptations were often overshadowed by later, more famous versions. Many silent film reels also fell victim to nitrate decomposition or were discarded during studio house cleanings, as the industry rapidly expanded and shifted focus to new productions. In 1996, a complete print of this historic film was rediscovered in an American archive, sparking excitement among Shakespeare scholars and silent film enthusiasts alike. Restoration efforts included careful cleaning, repairing damaged frames, and transferring the print to more stable film stock. Today, the film is considered a critical piece of cinematic and theatrical history. It demonstrates how American filmmakers were already experimenting with feature-length productions and literary adaptations long before Hollywood's golden era. While the performances and production values may seem dated by contemporary standards, the rediscovery affirms an important milestone: Shakespeare's timeless influence extending its reach into the nascent art form of film, preserving a fusion of theatrical tradition and early cinematic ambition. 8th, Bardelys the Magnificent, 1926. Starring the charismatic John Gilbert, Bardelys the Magnificent is a swashbuckling romance directed by King Vidor. Produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, it was adapted from the novel by Raphael Sabatini, known for penning other adventure classics like Scaramouche and Captain Blood. Set in 17th-century France, the plot centers around Gilbert's character, a roguish nobleman who wagers he can woo the virtuous Roxelane de Lavaudan, played by Eleanor Boardman. Sword fights, mistaken identities, and grand court intrigues ensue. The film's lavish production design, period costumes, and thrilling action scenes exemplified MGM's top-tier silent filmmaking. John Gilbert's star power radiates throughout, hinting at the romantic leads he would play in future classics. However, after the silent era ended, Bardelys the Magnificent fell into obscurity. Studio executives focused on producing talkies did not maintain the film's master negatives, and widespread distribution prints were either worn out or discarded. By the mid-20th century, Bardelys the Magnificent was considered lost. For years, film historians only had a few still photographs and promotional materials as evidence of its existence. Remarkably, a nearly complete print was discovered in France in 2006 within the archives of a private collection. Missing segments were restored using additional recovered fragments, and the film was reintroduced to modern audiences after nearly 8 decades. The rediscovery is invaluable for both scholars of silent cinema and fans of classic swashbucklers. It captures a key moment in King Vidor's directing career and preserves another shining example of John Gilbert's magnetic silent-era screen presence, reminding us how easily such cultural artifacts can vanish and then reappear like buried treasure. 9. The Passion of Joan of Arc, 1928. Carl Theodor Dreyer's The Passion of Joan of Arc is widely regarded as a cinematic masterpiece, renowned for its intense close-ups and the riveting performance of Renée Jean Falconetti as Joan. Centering on the trial and execution of the French heroine, the film's stark sets and minimalist style amplify the emotional depth of Joan's suffering. Dreyer's innovative use of composition, camera angles, and expressive acting techniques elevated the silent medium to new artistic heights. Shortly after its initial release, the film's original negative was destroyed in a fire, and Dreyer attempted to reconstruct it from alternate takes. However, that version was also believed lost in another fire, leading to decades of incomplete or low-quality prints. Cinemas showed various truncated or censored versions, diluting the film's visual and narrative power. Historians despaired of ever seeing Dreyer's original vision. A stroke of luck occurred in 1981 when a nearly complete print of Dreyer's original cut was discovered in a Norwegian mental hospital. Miraculously preserved, it allowed for a careful restoration of the film's haunting images. Modern audiences could finally witness the mesmerizing interplay between Falconetti's anguished expressions and Dreyer's close-ups, which remain legendary for their raw, emotional force. This rediscovery cemented The Passion of Joan of Arc as a pinnacle of silent cinema, influencing countless filmmakers and film scholars. Its legacy continues to remind us of the medium's potential for profound storytelling, even when bereft of dialogue, and how fragile that legacy can be when film elements are not safeguarded from the ravages of time. 10th, A Page of Madness, 1926. One of the most celebrated avant-garde works in Japanese silent cinema, Teinosuke Kinugasa's A Page of Madness represents a daring venture into psychological horror and experimental storytelling. The film is set in a mental asylum, where a janitor, haunted by guilt over his wife's institutionalization, experiences distorted visions and eerie encounters. Eschewing conventional narrative structure, Kinugasa uses rapid editing, superimpositions, and disorienting camera angles to mirror the characters' fractured mental states. Upon its initial release, A Page of Madness received mixed reactions. Some critics hailed its innovative techniques, while others found it too abstract. As time passed, the film vanished from circulation. Kinugasa himself believed that no prints remained. Nitrate deterioration, a common scourge for films of that era, threatened to erase this experimental gem. In 1971, however, Kinugasa rediscovered a print in his own storage, tucked away for decades. Realizing its importance, he turned it over to preservationists who undertook its restoration. While the film's unconventional structure still challenges viewers, A Page of Madness has since garnered acclaim among film historians and fans of surreal, expressionistic cinema. The movie's cinematic value lies in its pioneering approach to visual narrative. It predated many Western experiments in surrealism and stands as a testament to the global scope of early film innovation. Although it remains somewhat lesser known outside of film circles, A Page of Madness demonstrates that even the most obscure or experimental productions can play a vital role in expanding our understanding of what cinema can achieve, and how crucial it is to protect these works from vanishing entirely. 11. Beyond the Rocks, 1922. Beyond the Rocks was a highly anticipated romance in the silent era, uniting two of Hollywood's biggest icons, Gloria Swanson and Rudolph Valentino, under the direction of Sam Wood. Released in 1922, this opulent melodrama centered on Theodora Fitzgerald, Swanson, a young woman pressured into marrying a wealthy older man, only to fall irrevocably in love with the dashing Lord Bracondale, Valentino. Audiences of the day were captivated by the film's high society settings, lavish costumes, and the palpable on-screen chemistry between its leads, both of whom were at the pinnacle of their stardom. Yet, as with many silent features, Beyond the Rocks fell victim to careless archival practices. Nitrate film, known for its flammability and susceptibility to decay, was often discarded or left to deteriorate once a movie's theatrical run ended. For decades, no known copies survived, depriving fans and historians of a unique glimpse at Valentino and Swanson's only collaboration. It wasn't until 2003 that a Dutch film collector's private archive yielded a nearly complete print of the film. Restoration efforts at the Netherlands Film Museum were swift, allowing the movie to be reintroduced at film festivals and special screenings. The rediscovery was a major coup for silent film enthusiasts. Not only did it bring back a star-powered piece of cinematic history, but it also underscored the importance of global film preservation. Today, Beyond the Rocks stands as both a delightful period romance and a cautionary tale of how easily important cultural artifacts can slip into oblivion. 12. The Battle of the Century, 1927. Laurel and Hardy's The Battle of the Century is legendary among silent film comedies for featuring what many regard as the greatest pie fight in screen history. Filmed in 1927 and directed by Clyde Bruckman under Hal Roach's production, the short begins with Oliver Hardy managing Stan Laurel's ill-fated boxing career. After a series of comedic mishaps, the narrative escalates into a massive street-wide pie-throwing melee involving hundreds of pastries, and quickly devolves into delightful chaos. Though well received at the time, the Battle of the Century was considered lost in large part due to the fragility of nitrate stock and lax preservation efforts. The film's second reel, showcasing most of the pie fight, vanished. Laurel and Hardy fans spent decades searching for any fragments, hoping that at least a partial copy had survived somewhere. For years, only a severely truncated version existed, hinting at the comedic spectacle that once dazzled audiences. A turning point came in 2015, when film collector John Mersalis uncovered a near-complete second reel within an archive. This incredible find sent ripples of excitement through the community of classic comedy enthusiasts. Preservationists restored and screened the film, allowing modern viewers to appreciate the slapstick genius of Laurel and Hardy in its intended form. Today, The Battle of the Century holds a special place in comedy lore. Its rediscovery reinforces the power of pie-throwing slapstick and reminds us how even the most iconic acts can risk vanishing without dedicated archival work. 13. Upstream, 1927. Before achieving fame for iconic westerns like Stagecoach and The Searchers, director John Ford experimented with various genres in his silent-era career. Upstream is a prime example of his early versatility, an offbeat backstage drama set in a theatrical boarding house. The plot revolves around an egotistical actor aiming for Shakespearean stardom, a sympathetic knife-thrower's assistant, and the ensemble of vaudeville performers who share the building. While not a Western, the film employs Ford's emerging talent for strong character moments, comedic interplay, and distinctive visual flair. For decades, Upstream was deemed lost, one of many casualties of poor archival practices that befell silent films. Studios often discarded older titles or failed to store them in safe conditions, leading to nitrate decay or destruction. Since the movie didn't share the same status as Ford's later masterpieces, it slipped through the cracks of Hollywood's preservation efforts. Researchers could only glean its content from production stills, reviews, and Ford's incomplete filmography. In 2009, archivists in New Zealand made a startling revelation when they uncovered a near-complete copy of Upstream among a cache of overlooked film cans. The print was found in surprisingly good shape, allowing for a high-quality restoration. When Upstream finally screened again, film enthusiasts witnessed Ford's unexpected comedic timing, playful camera work, and capacity for nuanced storytelling, even at this early stage of his career. The film's rediscovery underscores that behind many legendary directors lie hidden gems, awaiting the chance to illuminate their artistic evolution. 14. Too Much Johnson, 1938. Renowned for Citizen Kane, Orson Welles actually dipped his toes into filmmaking years earlier with Too Much Johnson, a silent comic experiment created to accompany a stage product of William Gillette's farce. Starring Mercury Theatre regulars like Joseph Cotten, the film was intended to be shown in segments before each act, providing playful backstory with Keystone Cops-style chases and slapstick gags. Yet, due to logistical issues, no theater was adequately equipped for simultaneous film projections. The cinematic sequences were never used as intended, and the stage play promptly closed. Over time, Welles believed the footage had been destroyed in a 1970s fire at his Madrid villa, along with other cherished works. This presumed loss turned Too Much Johnson into a tantalizing piece of film lore, representing Welles's early directorial instincts and comedic impulses preceding the grandeur of his Hollywood debut. However, in 2013, an Italian warehouse yielded a complete 35mm print of the film, sending shockwaves through the film preservation community. Upon restoration, viewers got a rare glimpse into Welles's youthful creative mind. The movie's frenzied action and innovative camera angles foreshadow the brilliance he would exhibit in Citizen Kane. While the film was never fully finished or released as envisioned, Too Much Johnson now stands as a crucial link in Wells's artistic trajectory. Its rediscovery reminds us that behind every famous masterpiece, there can be earlier experiments, sometimes hidden away for decades, that help illuminate a filmmaker's early evolution. 15th Convention City, 1933. Few pre-code films have sparked as much intrigue as Convention City, a brisk, risque comedy produced by Warner Brothers, directed by Archie Mayo. It starred a cavalcade of talent, including Joan Blondell, Adolphe Menjou, Dick Powell, and Mary Astor. Set during a salesman's convention in Atlantic City, the plot brims with flirtations, partying, and assorted hijinks that skirted the era's moral boundaries. Contemporary reviewers praised its zippy dialogue and bawdy humor, reflecting the anything-goes spirit of the pre-code years. Yet Convention City remains infamous because Warner Brothers allegedly destroyed every known print. When the Motion Picture Production Code, also known as the Hays Code, began strict enforcement in 1934, studios were forced to either censor or pull content that was deemed too scandalous. Convention City reputedly proved impossible to sanitize under the new moral guidelines. Rather than risk trouble with censorship boards, Warner Brothers purportedly chose to eliminate the film entirely. Decades of rumors, unconfirmed sightings, and fruitless searches by historians have only added to the film's legend. While no print has ever surfaced, production stills and script copies survive, offering tantalizing glimpses of its saucy content. The potential reappearance of Convention City stands as a holy grail for pre-code enthusiasts, symbolizing just how dramatic an impact the Hays Code had in reshaping Hollywood cinema. Whether it truly lies lost in a vault or was indeed incinerated, its place in film lore is secure, a testament to the fragility and volatility of early Hollywood's output. 16. The White Shadow, 1924. Before he became the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock honed his craft in Britain's silent film industry. The White Shadow, directed by Graham Cutts, was a formative project for Hitchcock, who contributed as a writer, assistant director, and editor. The film centers around twin sisters, one virtuous and one wayward, both played by Betty Compson. Themes of duality, mistaken identity, and moral ambiguity hint at motifs Hitchcock would later perfect in his mature works. Like many silent productions of its era, The White Shadow suffered from being filmed on nitrate stock that was extremely flammable and prone to deterioration. Studios often discarded their older reels once theatrical runs ended. For decades, only faint references to the film existed, with no known prints surviving. It was officially considered lost, leaving Hitchcock scholars lamenting the absence of an early clue to his creative evolution. That changed dramatically in 2011, when the New Zealand Film Archive uncovered 3 reels of a film labeled White Shadow. After analysis, archivists confirmed it was indeed Hitchcock's lost work. Though incomplete, these 30 minutes offer a compelling view into Hitchcock's early influences, including expressionistic lighting and careful editing to build tension. Critics and fans now regard it as an indispensable artifact, illustrating how even in his nascent stage, Hitchcock was experimenting with suspenseful techniques and psychological complexity. This partial rediscovery not only enriches Hitchcock's biography, but also exemplifies the importance of worldwide preservation efforts for early films. 17. The Matinee Idol, 1928. Before directing classics like It Happened One Night and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Frank Capra cut his teeth in silent-era Hollywood. The Matinee Idol exemplifies his early penchant for blending romance with gentle humor. Starring Bessie Love and Johnny Walker, the film follows a famous Broadway actor who goes incognito to join a small-town theater troupe run by an idealistic young woman. Naturally, comedic misunderstandings and budding affection blossom, showcasing a playful underdog spirit that would define Capra's later triumphs. Unfortunately, the silent era's precarious storage and disposal practices almost erased the Matinee Idol. As studios transitioned to talkies, many silent features were deemed obsolete, their reels often lost or scrapped to salvage silver from the nitrate stock. Consequently, this early Capra effort disappeared from circulation for decades, known only through promotional materials, reviews, and second-hand accounts. In the 1990s, a surprise discovery in a French archive revealed a surviving print of the Matinee Idol. Restoration teams painstakingly cleaned and stabilized the film, allowing new audiences to enjoy Capra's charming, comedic flair. While it lacks the grand moral statements of his later works, the movie brims with the warmth and optimism that would become his trademark. Its rediscovery is invaluable for film scholars, tracing Capra's development from silent storyteller to one of Hollywood's most beloved directors. It also underscores how serendipitous findings in distant archives continue to rescue foundational pieces of cinema history from obscurity. 18. The Way of All Flesh, 1927. Directed by Victor Fleming and starring the illustrious Emil Jannings, The Way of All Flesh made history at the very first Academy Awards. Although the Oscars then recognized an actor's body of work rather than a single film, Jannings's powerful portrayal of a devoted family man whose life falls apart was crucial to his Best Actor win. The film traced his character's downfall after a robbery and brutal assault lead him to abandon his identity out of shame. Its deeply emotional narrative tackled themes of sacrifice, redemption, and familial devotion. Despite its early critical acclaim, The Way of All Flesh vanished. Nitrate prints of the film decayed or were discarded, and unlike some silent films that re-emerged through private collections or international archives, no significant fragments have resurfaced. Historians lament the loss, as it leaves a major gap in documenting Emil Jannings's celebrated screen presence. Its absence is especially poignant because the film showcased a turning point in acting styles, moving from theatrical gestures to more nuanced emotional expression. While Jannings's other work, such as The Last Command, offers insights into his talent, The Way of All Flesh remains a pivotal missing piece. Its disappearance serves as a solemn reminder of how ephemeral film can be, even those deemed important enough to win Academy recognition. The persistent hope is that a single print might yet turn up, shining fresh light on an historic performance and a critical link in silent cinema's artistic development. 19. The Godless Girl, 1929. Directed by Cecil B. DeMille during the twilight of the silent era, The Godless Girl probes themes of religious strife, youthful rebellion, and harsh institutional punishment. The story begins in a high school, where an atheist club and a Christian group clash violently, leading to the tragic death of a student. The ringleaders are sent to a brutal reform school, where their views are tested by cruel guards and unforgiving conditions. This bold narrative was noteworthy for its willingness to tackle controversial topics such as atheism and extreme religious conflict. DeMille, typically associated with lavish biblical epics, brought his flair for grand set pieces to the prison riot and fire sequences, lending the film a dramatic intensity characteristic of his work. Yet, as the transition to sound cinema took over, The Godless Girl found itself overshadowed and eventually neglected by a studio system intent on producing talkies. Over time, the original prints deteriorated. By the latter half of the 20th century, the movie was considered partially lost, with only incomplete or heavily degraded segments surviving. Restoration efforts in the 1990s reconstructed as much as possible, though some parts remain missing. Today, The Godless Girl stands as a fascinating relic of DeMille's willingness to explore moral complexity beyond the pageantry of religious epics. It also symbolizes a watershed moment, when silent and sound cinemas converged, and studios often abandoned films caught in the transitional shuffle, unaware of their future historical and artistic worth. 20. Johnstown Flood, 1926. An ambitious disaster drama by director Irving Cummings, Johnstown Flood brought the catastrophic 1889 dam failure to silent-era audiences with an impressive array of large-scale special effects. The film recounts how the dam's collapse unleashed a deadly flood that devastated the Pennsylvania town, killing thousands. Starring George O'Brien as a vigilant engineer and featuring a young Janet Gaynor in a supporting role, it combined personal human stories with the spectacle of nature's wrath, a precursor to later disaster epics. In an era when technical feats were limited, Johnstown Flood showcased elaborate miniatures and practical effects to simulate the colossal wave. Audiences marveled at these sequences, which heightened the film's tension and authenticity. Additionally, Janet Gaynor's involvement predates her success in Seventh Heaven and Sunrise, two roles that propelled her to the first Best Actress Oscar. However, like many silent films, Johnstown Flood faced neglect over the decades. Its nitrate reels were neither duplicated nor stored under proper conditions, leading to deterioration. For a long period, the film was presumed mostly lost, with only minimal fragments appearing in scattered archives. Although those pieces were eventually identified and partially restored, the complete version remains elusive. This missing majority underscores how ephemeral silent-era works can be, even those that once dazzled crowds with state-of-the-art effects. The hunt for additional reels continues, fueled by the hope of one day experiencing the film's dramatic blend of human courage and cinematic spectacle in its entirety.